Okay, so I thought actually I'll give you a second technique while I have the camera and lights set up, though I may publish it a bit later to give you time to absorb this one. So the first thing that I normally do in a new text is, as in the previous video, tap out the rhythm, tap to emphasize, physicalize the rhythm. Rhythm is a really extraordinary thing in a piece of text. So the second thing, well, I have a list of exercises from Patsy Rodenberg's book, which I wrote down a list, and I wrote down a list and I put check marks next to them. I use Evernote, the soft note-taking software, and I use the checklist feature. And every time I come to a new piece of text, I may look up that list and check off the techniques as soon as I've done them. But the more that you do this, you end up kind of you end up remembering quite a lot of them. I tend to do them in a certain order, which also helps you memorize the techniques. And then quite often you can do the whole thing on your way to work, walking, catching the bus. The last poem I did, I memorized the whole thing on my one daily walk in the coronavirus quarantine lockdown. And I did the techniques while I was walking down the street. And that ended up memorizing it too. So the second technique that I usually do is called intoning. So intoning is when you basically speak the text without any intonation, without any music. In a sense, you speak the text in a very flat way, as if you're a Gregorian monk chanting. You could call it chanting. As to the benefits of it, I can't remember. I'll put the text in the description. I like it. And it helps you get a feeling of the sound of the words without worrying too much, or how your interpretation of without intellectualizing your interpretation. You just get the sound of the words out. So I'll do it now on the same poem, The General by Siegfried Sassoon. Good morning, the general said, when we met him last week on our way to the line. Now the soldiers he smiled at are most of them dead, and we're cursing his staff for incompetent swine. That's about half of it. I'll not bore you with the rest. So one way of doing it is going through the whole text and intoning it that way. Another way of doing it, which I prefer, is to do it line by line and then intone one line and then speak it. And that's also a way to get out of what American actors call patterning your lines. So sometimes when you've been speaking something a lot, you end up with a fixed intonation. And this is a way of cleaning the lines and finding different ways of saying them. So I'll do the whole poem this way, one by one, and then I'll stop, line by line. Good morning, the general said. Good morning, the general said. When we met him last week on our way to the line. When we met him last week on our way to the line. Now the soldiers he smiled at are most of them dead. Now the soldiers he smiled at are most of them dead. And we're cursing his staff for incompetent swine. And we're cursing his staff for incompetent swine. He's a cheery old card, grunted Harry to Jack. He's a cheery old card, grunted Harry to Jack, as they slogged up to Arras with rifle and pack. As they slogged up to Arras with rifle and pack. But he did for them both by his plan of attack. But he did for them both by his plan of attack. So that's that. It's the second thing I do. I'll leave the third thing for another day.